PEMF is reaching every single cell in your body. When I say I love it so much because it's one of the only therapies that go all the way through your body and touch every single cell, that means it's going to have an influence on so many different functions and how you operate.
Hello and welcome to the Biohackher Podcast. I'm Azra and your host and founder of Biohackher. I'm an integrated nutrition health coach specializing in longevity for women, a health and wellness journalist, writer, corporate consultant, and a biohacking advocate. Biohackher is a space where we can explore ways to optimize our health to live well longer. Whether it's through improving our nutrition, exercising, cryotherapy, supplementation, technology, and more, I'll be bringing you information and interviews with the best longevity experts to help you understand what you can do to optimize your health, prevent disease, and slow down or even reverse the symptoms of aging by taking control of your unique bio-individuality. Want to know more? Let's dive in. Hey guys, before we jump into the next episode, I wanted to take a quick moment of your time to tell you about the next Live Well Longer retreat that I'll be co-hosting with Camilla Thompson. If you've been feeling the pull to pause, reset, and reconnect with the woman you're becoming, then this is your moment. Join us for the next Live Well Longer retreat, which will be held from the 1st to the 6th of May in 2026 at the beautiful Reviva Resort in Bali. This isn't just a holiday. It's a transformational experience designed to help you reset your biology, restore your balance, and reimagine what aging well truly means. Across 6 days, you'll immerse yourself in restorative practices, nourishing food, movement, workshops, deep rest, and soul-level connection with a community of like-minded women who are all committed to living well longer. It's the kind of retreat that stays with you long after you return home. The clarity, the shifts, the confidence, the reconnection to your healthiest, most grounded self. If you're ready to invest in your well-being and step into a new chapter feeling renewed and inspired, I'd love you to join us. Register your interest now at livewelllongerretreats.com. Spots are limited. Now on to the podcast. Hi, Candice. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Azra. I'm very excited for this one.
Yeah, me too, because there's been so much research done around PEMF. But before we dive into that, if women haven't heard of PEMF before, can you explain exactly what it is and how does it work at the cellular level?
Yeah, definitely. So PEMF is an acronym, luckily, because it's quite a mouthful. It's Pulsed Electromagnetic Field Therapy. And like most therapies, especially in the wellness and biohacking space, we're typically mimicking something that we need from nature that we're not really getting because of environmental factors or the fact that we're indoors all the time. So pulse electromagnetic field therapies is natural in nature, and it's actually produced when lightning strikes within the Earth's ionosphere. When it does this, which happens thousands of times a day, it actually creates an electromagnetic field around the Earth. So some people think that it's like grounding, which is another way to receive the Earth's energy from electrons with your bare feet. But you're naturally bathed in electromagnetic fields. And you might be familiar with the term, the Schumann resonance. And that term was coined by the physicist Winfried Otto Schumann, who mathematically predicted the Earth's electromagnetic field, which is about 7.83 hertz on average. So this kind of therapy is now in man-made devices such as mats or belts and systems like that. And it's to mimic what the Earth should be giving us at a more therapeutic level. And ultimately, it's helping with our electrical signaling, which we'll dive into further, but it has a cascade of effects. And it's such a science-led therapy. There's tens of thousands of studies on pulse magnetic fields. And fortunately, a lot of it's conducted on females, because we'll touch on this, I guess, at a later time in this episode. But orthopedics is a huge one for PEMF, bone health and everything. And unfortunately, females, we are more prone to most of the issues that happen as we age with bone health. So there's lots of research to show how it can actually support female health.
And that's pretty exciting that there has been so much research done around this for women in particular, because we have been left out of the equation on so many things health-wise for so many
Definitely.
years. It's only as recent as 1993 that the FDA approved for women, or that the Senate approved for women to be included in clinical trials in the US. So there's a lot of catching up to do as far as women being included in some of these health approaches. When we're looking at this electromagnetic system, what happens to the system as women age, and how does PEMF support healthy aging?
Yeah. So when we look at how our body's electrical pathways deplete as we age, that's from several factors. It can be from sleep, stress, other things that impact your aging, injury, illness. And if we're going to try and simplify it, our cells have a voltage. So our cells have an electrical and a chemical makeup. I mean, we know now that we're not just a piece of meat. We are electrical beings,
Yeah.
and we have so many electrical signals and cellular signaling throughout our body to operate our body and mind. And the way that PEMF helps with this is it kind of charges the voltage of that cell, or creates a healthy environment in the cell and on the cell membrane. And what this does is numerous things. So when it helps with your ion exchange, for example, so moving those nutrients like your minerals in and out of the cell, that's going to nourish it to create the right voltage to be able to start those metabolic processes. And it also helps with your mitochondria and your ATP. And it does this in a similar way. It nurtures the environment that the mitochondria are in within the cell, and ultimately helps to boost your ATP production, or adenosine triphosphate. So when you're able to nourish your cell and give it back what it has been depleted of, they can operate normally again. And ultimately, that's going to boost your circulation, your microcirculation. Your oxygen, blood, and nutrients get to flow freely through your body then. And that means it's going to reach all the areas that it needs. And there are so many offset benefits to that, whether it's anything from maintaining your hormone regulation or your cognitive benefits. So, energy and brain fog. There's a cascade of effects, but it's the coolest thing about PEMF, in my opinion, is that there's so many therapies out there and they reach a certain level into your body. But PEMF doesn't know you exist. It's electromagnetic fields. When you think about, and this is different, and we'll touch on this too, but EMFs, or electromagnetic frequencies, there are harmful ones. We don't see them, we don't necessarily feel them, but they're all around us and they pass through us. While healthy PEMFs do the same thing, except your cells resonate with that because they naturally produce their own electrical potentials. And so in turn, they're stimulated and they produce their own action potentials to process normally.
And so what is it about PEMF that makes it different to EMF in particular? What is it that makes it a positive energy to receive as opposed to EMF? Because we've seen so much negative media about EMF.
Yes. And there is like so many negative implications when it comes to EMFs. And they can also be called dirty electricity, electro smog. They come in different forms, and some of those include radio frequency. So hence we're using our cord earphones right now. We don't want Bluetooth, that's radio frequency, same as Wi-Fi. And then you've got the EMFs like stray voltage, which, let's say, for example, if an electrical device, even a wellness device, wasn't wired correctly, or if it was just using a certain type of current from your mains in your house, that produces an alternating current. And there can be stray electromagnetic fields that come out of that aren't good for you. They're harmful. They're just floating around causing damage. With PEMF, it's therapeutic because we're creating pulsed electromagnetic fields that our body responds to and that are harmonious with the Earth's electromagnetic field. Another thing with EMFs is they are usually short wavelengths and high intensity. So when you think about 5G and things like that. So when you have your phone against your ear, you can feel afterwards, after a phone call, a bit warm sensation, maybe even a little bit of a headache. That's because it's staying right in you. But PEMFs are low frequency, low intensity, and far wavelengths. So they're going completely past you. They don't know that you're there. It's your cells that respond to it.
Can you actually feel anything if you're sitting or lying on a PEMF mat? You've just highlighted that with EMF, like with a phone, and I've certainly experienced that. If you've held it up to my ear, you can almost instantly feel the heat. But with the mats, what do you feel?
Well, there's different types of PEMF therapy. And when we're talking about our mats in particular, or most of the widely studied therapies of PEMF, it's low intensity and low frequency. And you don't necessarily feel anything with those. So the frequencies pass through you, but it's only about 15% of the population who may actually lay on the mat. And it seems more because I interact with a lot of my customers, and I've also, they were at the Biohack Summit, and some people will lay on it and immediately feel the sensation. But with low frequency and low intensity PEMFs, it's more about the aftermath. So when I mentioned earlier, it's boosting your blood, your your nutrients and oxygen through your body, you're going to feel the onset effects of that more or less. If we're talking about high intensity and high frequency PEMF systems, you might be familiar with, there's a lot of clinics who are now using HOCAT machines.
I've experienced it. Yep.
Yeah. So you've probably had the PEMF on during one of those sessions and felt it.
Yeah. Yep.
And essentially that's a high intensity, high frequency PEMF. And you feel it. And a lot of the time people think they like that more because it's like, I can feel there's something happening, even if it's not that comfortable to feel. But it's more of an analgesic effect. So you think you're getting that relief immediately, but the long-term effects aren't as beneficial as low and slow. And the studies correlate more to the low and slow than the high intensity devices.
Right. So for women experiencing fatigue, burnout, low energy, there's a lot of this going on in women that are 35 and over. Can PEMF support that, and does it influence mitochondrial function as well?
Yes. So like I mentioned earlier, because it's going to create that environment in the cell, and it's also supporting the boosting of the nitric oxide, it's going to then in turn help with it. When we talk about inflammation and swelling and things like that, it's more of an byproduct of how the microcirculation and the nitric oxide production has that effect on the body. So it's signaling to the cytochrones, okay, you can relax now, or you can slowly go away, because we're nourishing the body with what it needs now.
Yeah, right. And in terms of supporting women through their fatigue and so on, how often should they be on a PEMF mat? What would you recommend the treatment approach should be?
Yeah. Sorry, I think I got a little bit caught up with the inflammation side of the fatigue and the chronic
No, you're
chronic
right.
fatigue and things like that, which is usually some sort of form of inflammation because it stems from so many different things. But typically when we look at chronic fatigue or just energy in general, so one thing people notice when they lay on a mat is they immediately feel relaxed, and they're like, well, how is this going to help with my energy? But it's actually giving your cells what they need. And we need to address the underlying causes of the fatigue. One of those includes sleep, another stress, anxiety, and so forth. So PEMF is very good for regulating the nervous system, and we'll get into brainwave entrainment, if you like, where the brainwaves mimic external frequencies, that of PEMF. And depending on the time of day you're using it, you can really cater your sessions to address specific needs, such as good sleep or anxiety, regulating the nervous system. So there's all these different things that you can do, and depending on what time of the day you're using PEMF, to support that fatigue and the energy long term. And with low intensity devices, you can use them daily. It's safe to use a minimum of 20 minutes or even up to 60 minutes, depending on your health status. Can be extremely beneficial for long-term use.
Are there any people that shouldn't use them?
Yeah. So when we go back to the high intensity devices like the one you experience and the one you can feel, they have a few more complications or contraindications. You don't want to be having any electrical implants. So if you've got any heart issues and you need those sorts of devices, or even the earpieces, for example. A lot of these get approved now, though, by health specialists, which is promising. If you've got metal implants, high intensity probably isn't going to be the most comfortable experience, but low intensity, like in our PMF mats, very gentle and very suitable for people who have metal implants. So any joint, hip replacements, things like that, all perfectly fine, but also extremely beneficial.
Yeah, good to know. There's a lot of wellness tech out there these days, and you and I and others are seeing that in the biohacking space. We saw that at the summit. What makes high quality PMF stand apart, and what should people be avoiding? Is it cheap devices? Is it incorrect frequencies? What should people be looking out for when purchasing a PMF mat?
Yeah, well, there's a few factors, and when you look at how you actually engineer man-made PEMF, it is quite straightforward. But if it's not done correctly, or if the modulator or the controller isn't programmed the right way, if the wiring or the adapters and things like that that connect it to power aren't made properly or aren't electrically approved, that's when you can get those stray EMFs, things like that. So there's the EMF aspect to it, where you only want to be receiving the good stuff. So you want to make sure that you've got a device that has, maybe AC to DC adapter. The wiring system's good. It's always best if you're looking for a device to ask questions and ask for the specifications. The other thing is the materials used, or unfortunately, and you'd be familiar with this in this industry, people jump on trends, and businesses love the idea of something and they jump into it, but they're not knowledgeable to a certain level about that. They know, for example, red light, they know that red light's really good, but they forget about all the other stuff that makes it good for you by eliminating all the crap, all the wavelengths and the irradiance and things. Yeah. The same goes with PEMF. So with our mats, for example, our new generation PEMF range, we have matched the specifications to the growing body of research that directly correlates to cellular performance, or actually having the most influence on natural healing processes. There's a few things that entails, and they include waveform, frequencies, the intensity, so that's measured in Gauss. Your hertz is the frequency, so you'd be familiar with that. I said 7.83 hertz is the average Earth electromagnetic field earlier. Anything between 1 and 100 hertz is most widely studied. And low intensity, that can be anything from literally half a Gauss, which is the Earth's magnetic field, up to 100 Gauss. A high intensity can have thousands of Gauss, so they're very strong. And high intensity also can have 10,000 hertz. So it's very different on the spectrum. So you want to make sure that what you're using or what you're purchasing correlates to the studies. There's also mats out there when they get on a trend, they just purchase it directly off like Alibaba or something. And they hear PMF, but they don't actually care to think about what are the specifications. And the number of coils is very important. So you have copper coils in a mat, and you have that signal from the modulator creating the pulsed frequency output. Now, if you've only got 3 coils in a full body mat, your whole body is not receiving the PEMF, but people are selling those. So we've got up to 12 coils in our mats, and that's so that you can get head to toe contact with the PEMF. So that's a really important one. But it's, all about doing your research.
Yeah, good tips. You mentioned that there's been a lot of research done for women around PMF treatment. What has that research shown in terms of the broader benefits for women specifically?
Yeah, so in the world of orthopedics, and when it comes to bone density in women, as we know, when we age, our bone density depletes, and that can cause problems. Now, while PEMF doesn't change hormones or raise them and produce them or anything, it supports the systems that influence hormone balance. And that includes, like I mentioned earlier, the sleep, stress, circulation, and inflammation. There are so many studies, and just to name a couple, there was one in 2020 for postmenopausal bone density where they used PEMF on half of the women and then a drug that most people use for osteoporosis with the other half, and they found the exact same results for both. So that just went to show that using a natural therapy rather than drugs produced the same benefits. And that was more for improving the bone mineralization and density. And there's also other ones that improve the healing time. So if you've had joint replacement or if you've got fractures that are repairing, there are several studies that show between 50 to 75% improvement in the speed of recovery. And most of those are measured over 1 month. So that's really big for particularly women, because once our bones are depleted or the bone density, we're more prone to fractures. And then we just have that cascade of effects that just don't work out too well for us.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I know.
We go through so much, don't we?
We really do. I love that I get to be a guinea pig for this, especially I'm 35, so I've been using PEMF for quite a long time now. And I really love that I get, my MRIs, I get my DEXA scans, I get my blood tests. So I check my bone density. I check all of these things to really see, is it impacting me? And fortunately, things are looking good. So I'm going to keep going. And I really just love that I've been able to bring something like this to Australia to help people like your lovely self. But also, initially it was to help my family and, my mom and my nan.
I was going to ask why you got into this space, actually. So it was because of family, is that right?
Yeah, well, I've always been into my health and fitness. Nutrition and your exercise are the cornerstones of good health. But I had always had this curiosity for longevity. And it particularly hit me when I read Dr. Dave Sinclair's book, Lifespan, in my 20s.
Yep.
It really just ignited this spark in me that felt like I actually have control of how I age, rather than I can just do all these traditional things and then hope for the best. But I really don't want to be feeling like a vegetable for 10 or 20 years before my life ends. I want to bridge that and feel my best right up until the end. But I also want my family to be the same. Otherwise, what's the point? So that kind of set me on a journey of working. So I do that, a lot of biohacking in my personal life, but it also pointed me into that career direction. I ended up working with an IV vitamin company as head of marketing. And because Dr. David Sinclair, he talks about NAD and everything.
Yes.
And I worked for this company. I'm getting NAD drips and I'm just immersing myself. Once I am interested in something, I get obsessed. So the vitamin industry, I just learned everything I could. And it really just set the tone for what could be achieved with my health. And then I learned about all these modalities all the time. And I heard about PEMF. And I heard about PEMF many years ago because PEMF was originally used on horses or race horses to successfully heal their fractures.
Yeah.
And then it's so common over in America and Europe, but hardly spoken about in Australia. So once I finally had that moment of why isn't anyone talking about PEMF here? I'd read about it, I'd listened to experts about it, and I became utterly obsessed with the idea of PEMF, that I felt like it was my calling to finally bring it to Australia and help more people.
Well done that you did so. And I'm super impressed that you read Dr. David Sinclair's book, Lifespan, in your 20s, because it's not an easy read. And you and I have a very similar story there, because I had a similar aha moment when I read that book, which is what started me on my biohacking journey as well. So some interesting synergies there, I think.
I love that. Well, then you would have been absolutely stoked at the Biohacker Summit then.
Oh, for sure. Like to actually get to meet David was just surreal. And it was a really great full circle moment for me, I think, that after having read his book and having that book influence me and the work that he does influence me and everything that I do for so many years, to have actually got to meet him was just a bit of a pinch me moment. So it was
full circle. I felt exactly the same. And he was just such a lovely man too. And the work that he's continuing to do in the space, I'm just enthralled in it. I just check updates all the time. I'm like, what's he found now? And it's super exciting.
He's got some exciting things happening at the moment, that's for sure. When we're looking at inflammation in the body, how does PEMF support those pathways in terms of reducing inflammation in the body?
Yeah, so Because when PEMF passes through your body and influences your cells, and it encourages that nitric oxide production, it's going to help with microcirculation, and in turn that helps reduce the signaling of cytokines and therefore your inflammation or swelling. So that's why most people, and particularly women, notice reduction in inflammation or swelling once they start using PEMF systems. So it's more, rather than getting in too deep, it's actually more of one of those byproducts of how it's just creating that natural healthy environment or voltage in your cell to be able to perform like it should.
Right. I'm thinking about my mother who I spoke to this week, and she was complaining about the fact that she's got really sore, aching legs, and, that she feels she's got some osteoarthritis kicking in. Does PMF support that sort of pain? Like, can it be of benefit in terms of helping to ease pain in that space?
Yes. So let's say you've got some inflammation or swelling, or you feel like you've got some blockages in the areas such as your legs or your knees, for example, as well. When you're getting your blood rushing to those areas because you're using PEMF, you're going to feel a sensation. Not everyone does, but a lot of people do. And that also is the same when it comes to surgery. So whether you've had joint surgery, things like that, you will notice a sensation around the area. And that's because the blood is finally reaching the area that it hasn't been able to. And because it's been stagnant, the cells have not been actively working the way they should. We're finally getting movement to those areas. It's going to help relieve that pain. So when it comes to aches, whether it's joints, even your gut health, reproductive health, so period pain, anything like that, it's really just boosting things to where they belong so that it can start having the natural processes, so your natural metabolic processes that impact the health of your cell.
So it can almost be used as a bit of a reboot, if you like.
Well, that's right. They say that with PEMF, you can't bring back to life a dead cell, but you can bring up the voltage of a cell that isn't doing too great. And the cells that aren't doing too great are usually the ones that are stressed, inflamed, they've been injured, or they're unwell. And another thing with that is because we're pushing that blood and oxygen through the body, another thing you're probably familiar with is where oxygen is, it's very hard for other bad stuff to occur without getting, without trying to get in trouble there with how we would word things. But it's just really creating the environment in the whole body. Or if you even have like a targeted PEMF device, say like a single coil, you can do localized application. So if you were to apply that over the legs, or if you applied it to your back, a lot of people have back pain, then it's going to put the PEMF through the body and help with the inflammation in that area. But we always recommend, typically, if you can use full body, then that's best, because it's not only reaching the organs, it's pushing it all throughout. And that's when you're going to have that cascade of effects.
Yeah, makes sense. Women often experience chronic stress and dysregulation with their nervous system. Walk us through how this type of therapy can assist women who are experiencing those symptoms.
Yeah, for sure. So when I mentioned brainwave entrainment earlier, that's a big one that can help with the parasympathetic. It can help with anxiety, stress, and sleep.
What is it though? So let's take a step back. Brainwave entrainment. What is that?
Yeah. So when your brain waves, they're very susceptible to energies and particularly frequencies. So that's another example of like a bad way that happens is when you are around electrical things all day and you feel absolutely wired. But if you're using therapeutic pulsed electromagnetic fields, your brainwaves can mimic the frequencies that you're using and therefore get into that frequency. Now, at different times of the day, we use different brainwaves. So at nighttime when we're asleep, we're in delta. Before that, we're in theta. When you're relaxed, getting into a comfortable zone where you're ready for sleep. When you're awake, alpha, beta, and gamma. So that's on a spectrum of, say, 0.5 hertz right up to 75 to 100 hertz. And when you are asleep, like I mentioned, you're in alpha, which is about 0.5 to 4 or 5 hertz. But looking at the nervous system, we want to actually be in a low and gentle frequency state, because if it's too high of a frequency, it's going to keep us alert. It's going to, have us have buzzing brains, things like that. We don't really want that when we're trying to address nervous system regulation. So my favorite one for getting into parasympathetic and easing anxiety, which is one of the main reasons I use PEMF. I even used my mat before this session to just calm my mind.
Love that.
And I used 7.83 hertz. That's the grounding frequency.
Yeah.
And that just put me into a very calm, relaxed state. It almost feels like it's pulling something out of you, that you can finally take a weight off your shoulder or out of your busy mind. Now, if you're using it before bed, you can go into the lower frequencies, say 1 to 5 hertz. And not only is that going to promote deep restorative relaxation, it's going to help you promote a really good quality sleep. So utilizing different frequencies at different times of the day will have different effects on the body. And for this instance, we actually want to stick to the lower ones.
And so when it comes to helping with sleep, have the studies shown that it improves deep sleep, so REM sleep? What do the studies show there?
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of studies on sleep and insomnia, and both have found really good evidence that suggests that it can be very beneficial, because of the way that it not only helps you go to sleep, but it helps you stay asleep. So that's probably one of the biggest things that my customers come to me about, aside from injuries and pain. They need help to fall asleep and stay asleep. And a lot of the time, we obviously don't get to conduct studies on ourselves, but sometimes people might have a Whoop, or they have a band, a ring that can measure or monitor their sleep. And quite often we'll have people come back to us and go, oh my goodness, I used the PEMF mat last night and my score has gone up by 20% or so. And I love hearing the stats because I do that myself. So it's something that you can see in the studies, and there's an abundance. It's not like there's 2 or 3. If you searched PEMF and then sleep or insomnia, you would see the PubMed articles come up and demonstrate exactly how it's beneficial. So you've got the studies, I've got my anecdotal evidence from my customers and myself. It's a wonderful treatment.
And it's good to know, because I think a lot of women that would be listening to this podcast do experience waking up, in the middle of the night, whether it's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I mean, that could be attributed a lot to going through perimenopause or menopause or any other number of reasons. But if there's a tool like this that people can leverage off to be able to help try to improve their sleep, then that's quite a powerful thing, because nobody likes having a bad night's sleep.
No, that's right. And with the whole, if you're using it before bed, you've got the focus on the brainwave entrainment, but you've also got your body and your cells responding to PEMF everywhere else. It's completely calming you down, and it's just easing you into that slumber. Very beneficial.
You mentioned that you have a lot of people coming to you also because of pain, and that is one of the biggest reasons that people will go to PEMF. What kind of pain does this type of treatment best respond to, and what doesn't it help?
There's so much growing evidence on new types of, not new ailments, but studying or focusing on new ones that they haven't previously. But in terms of pain and the array of ailments, there are people who have fibromyalgia. There are obviously the inflammation, whether it's, back pain, spinal injuries. A lot of people have surgeries and come to us. So if it's hip or knee replacements, it's going to help relieve the pain there. And they are the ones, when we provide a protocol on those for our customers, they're based on the studies. So like I mentioned earlier, we have the bone or the joint replacement surgery, and the healing time within 1 month was up to 75%. So we'll provide a protocol based on the frequencies that they used and how often they used it. Now, most of the time they use like a single coil in these studies, but because you've got a mat with 10, you do a few calculations and you're able to actually get the mathematical calculation of what that would spread, or how that spread would look on a full body contact. But it's been used in so many. It's kind of hard. I literally speak to customers every day, and there's always something new. And while I know many of the studies out there, there'll always be someone that has something that I had never really heard about. And once I deep dive, I'm like, how is this also covered? It's just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and I suppose like most things in the biohacking space, things are still growing, things are still evolving, and because we're so bio-individual, how an individual will react may be very different to how the next person next to them reacts as well. So it's great to hear those anecdotal stories that really help
Yeah.
others understand as well.
That most of the time, a customer will come to us because they have one wellness concern. And then when we chat with them again, or they reach out to us, they'll be like, so I decided to use it for this. And it helped with that too. And when you think about it, PEMF is reaching every single cell in your body. So when I say I love it so much because it's one of the only therapies that go all the way through your body and touch every single cell, that means it's going to have an influence on so many different functions and how you operate. But of course, it's not just a standalone or a magic pill. You do need to do other things in your lifestyle to really optimize its effects. And one of those things is minerals. So when we're talking about electrical processes, well, the ion exchange, we need those minerals. So I always suggest hydrating with not just clean water, but adding a pinch of salt or adding your minerals to it to truly optimize that process, because then we're charging the cell, we're also nourishing it. And that just creates that perfect environment to produce energy in the mitochondria.
Mm. What about detox pathways and lymphatic flow as well? That's something that women suffer from a lot. Can this support in that space?
Yes. So with microcirculation, it indirectly helps with lymphatics. So because it's helping with the fluid movement in the body, that's one of the byeffects.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people talk about mold detoxifications,
Mm.
heavy metal, other types of detoxes that they require. And that is one of the things that we do recommend. So PEMF in turn will help with that movement of the microcirculation, not only for nutrient assimilation, so helping your body to better absorb nutrients, but it's also going to help get rid of the waste.
Yeah, okay. So when we're looking at implementing this type of therapy, what is that minimum effective dose? I think you mentioned 20 minutes, but does it vary depending on what you're trying to treat? Does it vary depending on your age, for instance? Are there any contributing factors that would influence how you use PEMF?
Yeah. So a couple of things that we like to cover when it comes to creating a protocol for a customer is obviously one, knowing what they're using it for, what kind of ailment. If it is something serious or chronic, then it should be, maybe it could be twice a day. But it's also important to consider that not everyone has that luxury of using a device twice a day. So even if you're starting with one session and building your way up to more, or if you can have one longer session or have two shorter ones. However, someone can fit it into their lifestyle is important. The biggest thing though is consistency. So
Mm-hmm.
not forgetting that you own the PEMF mat, using it every day.
So keep it out somewhere where people can actually see it rather than putting it away in the cupboard. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right. Because these sorts of things, it's like if you're doing weight training once and then you're like, I'm not going to go for the rest of the week. I might do it
Yeah.
next week. Maybe that'll do something. Or it's not going to do as good of a job as it would if you did 3 or 4 times a week. So the same goes for PEMF. Now, let's say that you lay on a PEMF mat for 10 or 20 minutes. If you were to do a blood test beforehand, which I've done myself, I've got a microscope. I love geeking out on this sort of stuff.
I love that.
But if I prick my blood and test it under a microscope before a PEMF session, I will find that my blood cells are coagulated. They're very sluggish and they're kind of, they're coagulated. So they're all sort of clumped together and they're moving very slowly. There's no excitement going on whatsoever. If you are to have that session of 10 to 20 minutes and then check your blood again, you will notice that they are actually now separated. They're perfectly circular and they are moving so freely because of that. One, because we're creating that charge of the negative and the positive charge of the cell, they're repelling off one another. but they're also just vibrant and healthy, and they're energized because of that ATP production. So the change that can happen so quickly is quite remarkable, but it's something that that's why I love doing a blood test, because it's something you can see what's going on inside you, even if you don't necessarily know what's going on inside you yourself, like most things, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right. It can be a bit of a guessing game unless you're doing the testing, right?
Yeah, that's it. If you'd like me to quickly touch on testing. So because we can't necessarily see what's going on in our bodies, and not everyone's going to get a microscope out and test their blood, we sell them with our mats, but you could literally buy a magnet anywhere. So you could get a standalone magnet disc, and because it's electromagnetic fields, they respond, or a magnet will respond to that. So if you were to hover a magnet over the coils, it pulses in your hand to the frequency that's in use. So if you've got it in the palm of your hand, and you can have it up here and the coil can be down there, because remember I said that PEMF passes all the way through. It doesn't know you exist. So the magnet is pulsing above your palm. And if you've got 1 hertz, that's 1 pulse per second. 2, 3, 4, the higher you get, the faster that pulse. And something I absolutely love demonstrating is that in person to my customers, but also if I'm doing breath work or meditation on the mat, I'll pop the disc on my chest, and that's where I focus. So that's a really cool representation to physically see or feel PEMF.
Wow, sounds like a magic trick.
I know everyone's always pretty excited when they get to see or feel that. Yeah. But it's one of the best ways to demonstrate it.
Very cool. We've talked a lot about how the average person out there can use PEMF treatment. What about if you're an athlete, or if you're a high performer, or if you're a biohacker? Does the way you would use PEMF differ with those type of people?
Definitely. So aside from any chronic health issues, you've got your muscle performance and recovery. So a lot of wellness centers or sports recovery performance centers are now using PEMF as part of their protocols to help boost that circulation to the areas that need it. So when we're working out and our muscles are tight, they need relief. They need that blood flow. The inflammation needs to be reduced. And so there are studies on female athletes that have shown faster recovery, less soreness, and better performance when they're using PEMF, whether it's before or after a session. So I personally like to use PEMF after my weight training, because I go to the gym way too early to start it at that stage. But the PEMF, there's no set rule of a timeline of when you need to use it. It can be before or after. Most athletes will use it if they're going to the gym, or if they're doing their sauna, cold plunge, they'll incorporate PEMF into that. But let's say if they've just had a game, they may often use a device like a low frequency system afterwards. If they've got severe injuries from their sports, they can use a high intensity one if they need a faster result, or just that sensation that they're able to function better more sooner. But yes, so muscle recovery is a huge one.
There's lots of myths out there on lots of different things in the biohacking space. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on what the biggest myths or misconceptions there are around PEMF, and ones that you would in particular like to put to bed.
Yeah, well, I guess we sort of have touched on the EMFs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people get scared about PEMF because it's got the word EMF in it, but it's completely different. However, it is very important to do your research on the product and the brand that you're looking into, because not all devices are made equally. Just like saunas, you can get infrared saunas that are low EMF, and you can get some that didn't even think about that aspect. And so if you ask them the question, they don't have the answer. Well, there's your answer. The other thing that we noticed, and even a lot of people in the PEMF industry still get a little bit confused about, is PEMF. They kind of call it grounding on steroids, but grounding is when you've got your feet planted on the earth and you receive the earth's electrons. And like I mentioned, with the electromagnetic field that is created in the orbit of the earth, in the ionosphere, that's actually something we're walking around and bathed in. So there's a lot of products out there now, like grounding sheets. Yeah. And grounding sheets, you pop it on your bed and you lay on it all night, and it's supposed to mimic the earth's grounding. So that works very, very differently to PEMF. Although while grounding is studied, grounding sheets are not studied. And I've looked into them before as well. And it's just, I prefer something that's more science-backed. It just wasn't really for me. With PEMF, you don't need to lay on it all night. So another thing, people were like, can I lay on it all night? You can, but it's at a way more therapeutic level in terms of the intensity and the frequencies compared to grounding. So even 30 to 60 minutes before bed will help you sleep. No need to lay on it all night.
So you couldn't overdose on it then?
No, you can't. So you could literally use PEMF if you really wanted for several hours on end. Some people will do this, and I myself will. For example, if I get back from travels and I feel crappy because every time I get home, I swear I've caught something, or I just feel run down, or I need my circadian rhythm to be rebooted. And with the circadian rhythm, we're talking about those frequencies in our brainwaves at different times of the day. They're all out of whack when we've been traveling. So you use those frequencies to be able to get back into sync. But I'll lay on my mat. Typically, I won't go to work the first day. I will be on my mat at home all day. And then the next day I go in new woman.
Such a great hack to use then if you travel a lot, if you are experiencing jet lag all the time because you do travel a lot, then it'd be great to have one of these in your suitcase when you travel.
Yeah, we do even have a protocol on that. So it's very useful.
Okay, so you actually recommend protocols to people that are purchasing these mats as well, yeah?
Yeah, like our user guide is really robust. There's a lot in there, very comprehensive in terms of our recommendations in general, but we can't fit everybody's wellness needs in the one booklet. And part of my brand and something that the most important part of it to me is customer service. So I'm regularly talking with my customers, whether they're deciding on a purchase or they've already purchased, in creating the right protocol that fits them specifically, not just generalized, because everyone's different and they might need to be introduced to it a different way based on what they have been dealing with health-wise, or they can just jump right into a protocol that we recommend. So it's just about fine-tuning it for everybody. As you said, everybody is different. Everyone's going to respond differently. Some people might respond better to one program or a group of frequencies than another person. And so it's when you think about working out or exercising a muscle, you need to change that up occasionally. Otherwise, the same thing, you get the same results. The same thing with PEMF. People also call PEMF exercise for the cells. So mixing it up is beneficial. And one thing to touch on with regards to that diversity is with different waveforms. So PEMF outputs waveforms. They can be sine wave, which is that smooth wave, or they can be square wave. And our new gen range utilizes square wave because it's more in the growing body of research now for that sharp rise and fall in a square is called a slew rate. And the sharpness of that can be more stimulating for cellular signaling. So when we're using waveforms, we want to make sure that it's harmonious with the body. And so people react to different ones as well.
Yeah, I did wonder about that because I think in certain things, the body can metabolize things, and then you can, if you use it all the time or if you take something all the time. I know for me, if I tend to stay on supplements, a particular type of supplement, as an example, for an extended period of time, my body gets used to it and I don't have the same, I suppose, noted benefits as what I would have initially. So I wondered whether PEMF was the same, that if I was to just sit on a mat, for 8 hours while I'm sitting in front of my computer all day, is that going to reduce the benefit because the body does, because the body does metabolize. I wonder if there's any studies to that effect.
Yes. So with the sine wave, that smooth wave form, when you want to use a frequency, you're better off using a program because a program can have different frequencies within that session. So it's always changing. You're getting that diversity. With a square wave, you don't necessarily need to have programs, although we do, because even if you have one single frequency running, say 5 hertz, square waves produce harmonics, which is just wave frequencies here and there off it. So it might go from 4, 3, 10 hertz. That's just part of how a square wave works. So even using one frequency in a square wave device is beneficial, but the reason that we create programs is because we want to make sure that they correlate to the research. So there's specific ones for different times of the day, whether it's like morning activation for circulation, pre-sleep, parasympathetic nervous system regulation, like the program I used before this interview, and so forth.
Yeah. You've seen thousands of data points by the sounds of things. What's the most surprising transformation that you've witnessed using PEMF?
I think it doesn't necessarily surprise me sometimes, but it's always really exciting when I hear from a customer or someone who hasn't even owned one yet, but they've used it in a clinic, or we even have wellness Airbnbs who have our mats there. So more recently, I had a lady who had a hip replacement 10 years ago, and she's just never felt the same since. She's just had aches the whole time. She used our mat she told me 3 times within 48 hours. And I left that Airbnb a new woman. And just, I think about these women, and I think of my mum, and I think of my grandma, and I get watery eyes thinking about it, because it brings me so much joy knowing that I've helped someone with their pain, or like they're getting mobility back, they're getting a new lease on life. And the same thing is with another customer who had spinal injuries. Well, we've actually got a few, and a lot of them are from surf-related injuries, and they've become quadriplegics, and they have to go through all this rehabilitation, and they're using our mats in addition to this recovery period. And the way that their bodies are accelerating their response to getting back to their regular selves it's absolutely mind-blowing. It's just, I am always in awe of what a person, an individual can be determined to do. But then when you add all these holistic modalities as well as your typical recovery protocol together, what you can actually achieve. And I think that when we're looking at studies, one of the major ones for me was that I loved that there was actually studies conducted on women, because we're not just little men, and most of the time it's always male dominant. So being able to read studies and go, okay, these women experience this result, and especially with the orthopedics area, I just am in awe of it all.
Must have been really rewarding to hear that feedback from people that have used the mat as well, and just keeps driving you forward, right, to getting it out there to people, I suppose. For someone who's listening, though, who's skeptical, because there are skeptics, and I must say I can be quite skeptical about things, but what's the strongest science or clinical evidence that you would point them to so that they can, improve their knowledge on this and really look at, well, what are the benefits?
Yeah, so there are tens of thousands of studies online. Most of them originally came from the area of work on the bones, joints, cartilage, that sort of space. That is probably the most robust. And when you read these studies, they really do go into how it impacts the body and how it impacts the osteoblasts and the activity in the bones. So in a sense of where to go first, I think that the research in that area is really important and well documented. Also with the cognitive benefits. So there are even studies now on Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, as well as the sleep and insomnia studies that really go in depth with that brainwave entrainment. And these are all in clinical settings. They're double-blind, placebo-controlled, and they, because it's all science-backed, it's kind of hard to really, once upon a time when we first sold our original mat, we met science with spirituality, and we had the crystals in them. And, people might look at the crystals and go, no, it's just woo-woo. So our new range doesn't have crystals because we really want to highlight that this is scientific. This is research-backed. There is literature out there that can literally demonstrate how this is impacting you on a physiological level.
We might get you to shoot through some links if you're able to, and we can pop them in the show notes for our listeners so that they
definitely
can go directly to them. All right, so if you're a woman that's 40 to 70 years of age, what is the protocol that they should be doing?
What I would recommend is based on your lifestyle, if you can manage a quick 10-20 minute session in the morning, that would be an excellent start to your day to boost circulation. That means that anything else you're doing that day, your body is going to respond better, whether it's nutrition-wise or physical exertion or regulating your stress response. So a morning session is always great if you can squeeze it in. If you have the ability to use it during the day, or if you're somebody who gets a little bit overwhelmed or stress peaks throughout the day, not just when your cortisol rises in the morning, then if you have a moment to sit and just bathe in that PEMF, that will help regulate your nervous system. But if you can do the morning circulation boost and then a pre-sleep setting, that they would be the two main ones that I'd always emphasize on. If you can do 30 to 60 minutes before bed, whether you're reading a book or you've got your red light glasses on and you're watching TV, laying on the mat, it's just another thing that you can incorporate into the routine that you've always had. But you're going to entrain your brain to get into that theta and then the delta waves to promote quality sleep, which is integral to longevity and health.
I love that you can stack it with other hacks as well. I think that's great because a lot of women are time poor and we've got lots on our plates. So wherever we can stack our hacks to be able to optimize that time, I think that's always a bonus. The biohacking space, particularly in the tech space, is just moving so quickly. Where do you see PEMF therapy being in the next 5 years?
Well, I think that we're still at the very beginning of the life cycle of PEMF in Australia in particular. Although it's been around for decades elsewhere, it's kind of like we're all very familiar with infrared saunas now, but we're not all very familiar with PEMF. The way I see it evolving in Australia is just more awareness, for one. People are going to catch on to it. These sorts of modalities are suppressed, particularly in places like Australia. So more women and men are open to this biohacking experience and researching for themselves. So we're going to bring education, which is number one. Then I think when it comes to the technology, we're going to be incorporating AI. So whether it becomes something like not just a medical device, but a measuring device too, where you can actually see your results. So you don't have to go and get blood tests elsewhere, or you don't have to have a wearable to see how your body is responding to it. I think that that'll all be integrated into the PEMF systems in the future. In addition to that, I think there'll be more wearables. There already is starting to be more diversity in the type of product that PEMF can be put into. So, for instance, there are brainwave entrainment PEMF devices that you hook up, and that'll help with the brainwave signaling. We've got our PEMF belt, which is just the one coil for localized treatment. That's portable and rechargeable. So that's very new for us, but fantastic because a lot of people want PEMF on the go or when they're traveling. So yeah, just really the education, wearables, and incorporating AI to be able to actually measure the response that it's having on your body.
Yeah, that would be cool to incorporate AI, I think, to actually then see in real-time situation what those benefits are. Very cool.
Yeah. I've already reached out to Whoop to make sure they add PEMF to their recovery.
Yeah, what was the response? Did you get a response yet?
Yeah, they're going to look into it. So apparently
cool.
A lot of other people have asked the same thing. So, when I'm having my recovery, it's always on my PEMF mat. I can't select that. So I need to select something else and then make a mindful note that the meditation means PEMF. So I've actually started talking with them about adding this to the app. And I think that would be a huge step as well, because so many people use this technology, and to be able to see how something already established like Whoop can measure how your body performs using it, I think that'll be game changing.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. It's not on the journal list, is it? When you scroll through, you've got your sauna, you've got your cold therapy, you've got grounding, whatever it might be, sunlight exposure, but it doesn't have PEMF. I was just going through my list thinking, oh, Deb, I sent it there, but no, you're right.
Yeah. And I highly predict that it will be next. It's something that is just on that cusp of global recognition. So we'll see.
Fabulous. Well, that's exciting news for you. Tell me, I've got one final question for you. What does it mean to you to live well longer?
To live well longer, it means to always be in a state of curiosity. I think that part of being or feeling youthful is to always be curious about the world around you and to always be willing or excited to learn. So, and that's from a mental point, but also from your body. So I don't want my brain to be depleting or, declining as I get older and my body's still nice and fit. I need this to be stimulated. And I might not want to work, but I definitely want to learn language. I want to learn instruments. And so longevity to me means getting the most that I can out of life. I don't want to just have one career. I don't want to just have one language that I can learn. I don't want to learn just one instrument. These are just examples. I want to get the most out of living. And I want to make sure that I can do it around all of my loved ones as well. So creating that community and having everyone there around you, because we all know that love and connection is so important too. But yeah, making sure that your mind meets your body and then you've got that community around you. I think that that's, the purpose of life, but also the biggest meaning for me anyway.
Well, I think that's a fabulous thing to aim for, and I'm right there behind you. I'll probably reach there a little bit earlier than you because you're younger than I am, but I'm all about making sure we get the most out of life as well. Look, Candice, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really great to do a deep dive into PEMF treatment and to get a better understanding of the benefits, and I really hope that our listeners get lots of takeaways from our chat today, so thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Azra.
Hello and welcome to the Biohackher Podcast. I'm Azra your host and founder of Biohackher. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach specializing in longevity for women, a health and wellness journalist, writer, corporate consultant, and a biohacking advocate. Biohackher is a space where we can explore ways to optimize our health to live well longer. Whether it's through improving our nutrition, exercising, cryotherapy, supplementation, technology, and more, I'll be bringing you information and interviews with the best longevity experts to help you understand what you can do to optimize your health, prevent disease, and slow down or even reverse the symptoms of aging by taking control of your unique bio-individuality. Want to know more? Let's dive in. Hey guys, before we jump into the next episode, I wanted to take a quick moment of your time to tell you about the next Live Well Longer retreat that I'll be co-hosting with Camilla Thompson. If you've been feeling the pull to pause, reset, and reconnect with the woman you're becoming, then this is your moment. Join us for the next Live Well Longer retreat, which will be held from the 1st to the 6th of May in 2026 at the beautiful Reviva Resort in Bali. This isn't just a holiday. It's a transformational experience designed to help you reset your biology, restore your balance, and reimagine what aging well truly means. Across 6 days, you'll immerse yourself in restorative practices, nourishing food, movement, workshops, deep rest, and soul-level connection with a community of like-minded women who are all committed to living well longer. It's the kind of retreat that stays with you long after you return home. The clarity, the shifts, the confidence, the reconnection to your healthiest, most grounded self. If you're ready to invest in your well-being and step into a new chapter feeling renewed and inspired, I'd love you to join us. Register your interest now at livewelllongerretreats.com. Spots are limited. Now on to the podcast.